Feels like it's been quite a while since I've sit down to talk to the camera and make a YouTube video. In fact, it's probably not actually been that long, but I put quite a bit of pressure on myself to make things, which is something I want to talk about in this video. But a couple of days after filming this video, I turned 30, which feels very weird to say. You know, when you're a kid and you see 30-year-olds and they think they're really old and that you'll never get to that point. To actually be at that point now feels quite strange, and I don't feel like the fully grown up adult that I once thought 30-year-olds were. And turning 30 feels like a bit of a milestone, not just because of the whole new decade starting all over again at 30, a nice round number and all of that. But for me personally, it's the first time where I feel like I've actually had a strong idea of what I want to be doing, and that is photography and this YouTube channel. And it's taken me a long time to actually fully realise that. When I look back at my 20s now, and I suppose this is probably the same for most people, but they were all about just trying to figure things out, making mistakes, learning and trying new things. And it wasn't always easy, but I can see how all of those different experiences have got me to where I am today. And photography has always been there, even though I didn't really realise it until maybe 5 years ago or so. There's footage of me playing around with my mum and dad's old film cameras, taking my first image as a kid. I remember my granddad messing around with early versions of Photoshop, and my dad did a little bit of photography as well. He photographed a couple of music festivals, and I went along, and so I can remember photography being around me. Very quickly, just before I go any further, I just want to mention that I now have a free 5-page ebook available for download on my website by signing up to my newsletter all about storytelling in photography. This is a topic that I made a video on not so long ago about. It is something that I'm really passionate about, and it is something that I'm always striving for in my photography, to be able to create more intrigue or to tell a story through my images. So go and check it out if you want to. It is linked down in the description, and if you download it, you will also receive a free Lightroom preset. So go and check it out, let me know what you think. And one time that kind of stands out as a bit of a memory is when I was in Paris with my dad, and he had a camera with him. He wasn't doing photography, but he had an old Nikon DSLR with him. I think it was a D90, and he was just it was just kind of had it with him just to document. He wasn't doing photography as such, but we were going up the Eiffel Tower, and I'm terrified of heights, but when I had that camera in my hand, I felt fine. If you've ever done the Eiffel Tower, it is terrifying. You can almost feel it wobbling at the top. And if you're not good with heights like me, it is awful. But when I had that camera in my hands, I felt safer. As soon as I gave that camera back to my dad, I was terrified. So the camera was almost acting like a little bit of a comfort blanket for me, and I didn't realise it at the time. And it's probably a little bit the same now, if that makes sense, because when I'm doing photography, when I have a camera in my hands, or when I'm making a video, I feel comfortable. But when I'm not, I'm constantly thinking that I want to be doing that, and I'm just always itching to be out with a camera doing photography and things like that. Does that sound weird? Maybe it does. I don't know. I don't care. So what I'm trying to say is that photography was always there, but I was kind of not thinking about it. I didn't really take much notice of it until I came back to it later in life when I started this YouTube channel, which didn't actually start out as a photography-based YouTube channel. It started out as acoustic song covers. I did a lot of Oasis covers and things like that, and a lot of them were pretty dreadful, like genuinely dreadful. But it got me back to playing with cameras and learning how to make videos and doing photography. So then kind of photography did a full circle, and I came back to it, and now I am truly obsessed with it. There is not a day goes by where I'm not doing some form of photography, whether it's for work, myself, this YouTube channel. And I now get to call myself a full-time photographer and work with brands like Lumix and fly over to the other side of the world. Like I went to Japan with them earlier in the year. It is surreal to think how far I've come and how much picking up a camera again has completely changed my life over the last, I'm going to say 4 years, but more recently, it's probably the last 2 years. And while it has done so much for me over the last few years, what makes it just a little bit trickier is moments of imposter syndrome and anxiety that just make creating that little bit harder. Spending way too much time on social media, comparing myself to others and thinking I'm not good enough. And then that gets in the way of me doing what I want to be doing, which is creating, just getting out and doing photography and making videos and telling stories. I think that comes from falling into the trap that is relatively easy to fall into as a creator of consuming more than you create, which is so easily done. And it's something that I want to start trying my best to get well away from and start creating more for myself again, because I have listened to the voices in the back of my head for way too long that tell me I'm not good enough and that tell me that what I'm doing isn't worth it and I shouldn't even be bothering, and all of that nonsense that kind of shouldn't get in the way of me creating what I want to create, but it does get in the way. And Rick Bebbington made a brilliant YouTube video about this the other day, kind of photography, YouTube, social media, and how they can all affect each other. And he talks about how social media affects us and deleting Instagram off his phone. And I will link it down in the description if you want to go and check it out, because it's absolutely brilliant. And I think it's something that all of us, especially as creatives, kind of need to be more aware of, and burnout and all of that is incredibly important. So make sure you go and check that video out after this video. So if I relate that back to turning 30 in a couple of days' time, it feels like a good time to try and not reset, because I'm not into that whole new year reset kind of thing. New year, new start, new me. I'm not into all of that. But turning 30 kind of does feel like a good opportunity to make a couple of changes to help find new ways to make creating things easier and to help me get to where I want to be with my photography and video, potentially even quicker, but to help me get to where I want to be with it. Little things each and every day. So maybe come up with video titles one day, plan a video one day, film a video and edit another day, and just break things down into smaller, easier targets, which sounds like a simple thing and that I should have probably been doing for years, but the way my head works, I'm kind of all in or nothing. So I think for me, it's kind of just about trying to find ways in which I can sustain that creative process over a longer period of time and trying to avoid those patches of kind of imposter syndrome and anxiety as much as I can. I know obviously that's not entirely possible, but trying to find ways in which I can swerve around those patches sometimes. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe it does. Obviously, everyone's going to have those patches at some point, but if you can avoid them as much as possible, and I think for me, it's kind of breaking things down into smaller chunks, which might sound like a bit of a no-brainer to some people, but yeah, who knows? I always used to think that turning 30 was a little bit scary because it always felt like I should have everything entirely figured out by now, even though that is just not the case at all. But I'm just using it as a little bit of a fresh start because I've learned so much in my 20s, especially over the last 2-3 years since I've been doing more with my photography, and I'm ready to put all of that into practice in my 30s and get me to that point that I want to be at, where I can see myself in a few years. So if you are on your own creative journey, whether that is photography, YouTube, or something else entirely different, just keep going. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Learn from them. Try new things and just enjoy it. Enjoy that whole creative process. Starting YouTube and picking up a camera again is one of the best things that I ever did in my 20s. who knows what it'll be in my 30s, but I know that photography and YouTube are going to be a massive part of it. And I'm hugely excited for that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you turning 30 or have a big birthday coming up? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to download my free ebook on my website by signing up to my newsletter. And I promise that the next video will be more photography, potentially gear-based video. I'll see you in the next one.